Greetings, everyone. Welcome back to another segment of Faith Book Shoes. This segment in particular was inspired by a conversation that I had with one of my good friends on my birthday. We were talking about life, our different passions or purposes, and it was interesting because around this same time, I was reading a book called No One Succeeds Alone by Robert Rifkin. The name of the book is No One Succeeds Alone. Learn everything you can from everyone you can. And it's funny because I stumbled across Robert Rifkin while just surfing the web and visiting blackenterprisemagazine.com or blackenterprise.com, which Black Enterprise is a magazine, and they just did a story on him about his life and pretty much talked about him as an entrepreneur and a businessman. When I noticed he had a book, I said, you know what, his story is pretty interesting. I want to check out his book and, pretty much see what he has to say. And I'm glad I picked it up. I went to the library, grabbed the book, and I was reading it. So the quotes from that book in combination with the conversation that I had with my friend is what inspired this. So I'm going to be brief this segment. I have just 4 quotes that I want to give to you. So the first quote that he mentioned from Robert Rifkin is, "Your place is wherever you feel fulfilled, alive, and at peace." And when he talks about place, he's talking about, not only a physical place, but also a mental place. Because if you don't know about Robert Rifkin, he's a mixed race. His father is African American and his mother is Jewish. And he talks about how growing up, he often struggled to find his place. He would always feel out of place. But as he got older and wiser, he understood, which he mentioned in his quotes, that ultimately his place is wherever he feels fulfilled, alive, and at peace. And I can totally relate to this and developing, or struggling to develop, what my identity is and pretty much what is my place in the world. And for me, when I run and when I read, I feel most at peace. I feel most alive. My thoughts start to come to me and I feel inspired to, produce all of the things that are in my imagination. So I think it's very important to understand those hobbies or those things in life that bring you joy, that bring you alive and bring you at peace, because ultimately those are what help you find your place or understand what your place is so that you can produce whatever it is that's in your imagination. Another quote Robert Rifkin offers us is actually something that was given to him by a mentor, and it is to always be like water. He says that no matter what you set in its way, water finds a way to keep moving. It changes form. It tunnels deeply. It discovers a path around whatever obstacle comes across its journey. Water wears away the obstacles that try to contain it, carving new paths that are easy to follow in the future. That quote is a lot to unpack, is rather long, but if I had to throw one word at this quote to sum it up, it's adaptability. It's important, like water, to adapt to whatever life throws your way. All of the obstacles and challenges that are given to us in life, it's important to be like water. And it's funny, going back to the conversation I had with my friend, we were talking about how, we have kids and how, with kids it's so hard to, kind of focus or even have that time to time to pretty much engage in those hobbies. Going back to the first quote about finding a place. Like sometimes, engaging in those hobbies and setting aside that time for yourself is so challenging when you have kids who a lot of time eat at your time. But it's important to be like water and adapt and to make room for those things that make you come alive, those things that make you feel fulfilled, those things that bring you peace, because ultimately it makes you a better parent, and ultimately it gives you that energy and that liveliness that you need in order to produce your whatever in your imagination, produce the things that you are called to do, produce your purpose. So be like water. Also, and this next quote really got to me. It really resonated with me, and I could not agree more. And this quote actually comes from Robert, a teacher that Robert Rifkin had, and he talks about in the book how he had beat all the odds, was able to get accepted into Columbia University, but he was failing his physics class. And he talks about how his teacher intervened so that he wouldn't just outright fail him, because if he failed him, then, that would have hindered Robert Rifkin's ability to go on to the next level, which would have been Columbia. If he would have failed him in that class, that would have hindered his opportunity or stopped his opportunity for going to the next level. So the teacher intervened and had a meeting with Robert to just figure out what was going on in his life at the time and tell him, like, listen, you're in jeopardy of failing, so you need to get your act together, pretty much. And Robert, he talks about in how, he reached back years after while he was writing this book to pretty much get an understanding of what prompted the teacher to make that critical call to intervene. And the teacher said, I had to become a teacher and not simply have the job of a teacher. And again, that struck me because in my life, the people who had the most influence on me were not necessarily the teachers in the classroom or the teachers who had the profession of teacher, which teaching is very important. I'm not diminishing that role. The job of a teacher is very stressful, very hard, and is very important. But the teachers of life, I always talk about, from the beginning of my podcast journey, I talk about the importance of mentors and those teachers of life and the impact, the crucial, critical impact that they have on someone. And, that quote just puts it very in perspective. Like the teacher said, I had to become a teacher and not simply have the job. The teacher could have just said, you know what, the student is failing. It is what it is. But he didn't. He took time. He took time to sit with Robert to get a feel of what's going on. And in that time, he was able to transfer, knowledge and transfer an opportunity to get Robert to ultimately pass the course and go on to Columbia. And Robert talks about, man, what would my life been like had I failed that class, had the teacher not intervened, failed me, and I would not have been able to go to Columbia. And, it's not to take responsibility off of Robert, but again, in life, it's so important to sometimes become a teacher and not just have the job of teacher. And, the last quote that I have from this book, and I'm so grateful for it. It's, in life, when trade-offs come at too high of a cost, they're actually not worth it. This quote is so simple, but it's so very important. In life, when it comes to opportunities and pursuing goals, there's going to be a point in life where you have to make a decision, and that decision comes with a trade-off. And the trade-off is pretty much what you're giving up based off of that decision. And what Robert said is, if the trade-off is too high, comes at too high of a cost, it's not worth it. We all, I guess a way to look at this too is, we all have sometimes things that we may want to purchase, like a good or service we want to purchase. But in our minds, we have to evaluate whether that thing that we want to purchase, do it cost too much? Should I wait to maybe that purchase that I'm seeking goes on sale? Should I wait? Life another time is about, engaging in the thought process of whether to jump in at a high cost or wait for that cost to be less, not as high. And Robert, he talk about his philosophy is always low cost, high reward, versus this idea that we always have to do things at this high risk, high reward mentality. No, you don't necessarily. It don't always have to be that way. You could limit your risk while also reaping the benefits of a high reward. So I just sum up, and I said this podcast would be a little shorter, that I will only have 4 quotes rather than an abundance of quotes from the book. But I just want to challenge everybody, because I think this is the ultimate theme of the book, or what I took as the theme, and as I spoke with my friend, pretty much where we kind of left off. And it's the challenge that I want to give everybody. And the challenge is to combine your fire with TNT. Your fire is your passion and your purpose. It's the thing that makes you feel alive, feel fulfilled, feel at peace. Combine that with TNT. TNT are the teachers and the teammates that collaborate with you along the way. And by combining your fire with TNT, which again, TNT are the teachers and the teammates. By combining your fire with combining your fire with TNT will explode you onto the scene of your dreams. And I'll end, as I end every segment, with the inspiration statement. No matter how many setbacks, no matter what people do to stand in your way, what you are destined to has your fingerprints on it. Only your specific gift can produce your destiny's true impact. Nothing, nor no one, can permanently block the fulfillment of your destiny. It's only a matter of proper preparation and God's perfect timing. Faith, books, shoes.